Good morning, New Testament Survey students. This is Mr. Albers, and I'm here with Hudson. You want to say hello, Hudson? Yeah, mostly we figure that means hello. But anyhow, we are here to introduce the book of Romans to you. This should be relatively brief. A lot of this information is review. If you have your handout with the chart of the background information from the different New Testament letters, this would be a great time to just grab that, make sure that you can fill in any holes that are in that chart or write down any supplementary information that you find helpful. But anyhow, let's dive in. So as you know, the book of Romans is written by Paul the Apostle. He was born a Jew in the city of Tarsus in modern-day Turkey. He was actually born a Roman citizen, interestingly enough. He was educated as a Pharisee of Pharisees, so he was you might say, the valedictorian of Pharisee school, very prestigious amongst the Jewish people. After his conversion, he made numerous missionary journeys throughout what's now Greece and Turkey, known as Asia Minor at the time, and ultimately was imprisoned and killed for the sake of the gospel under the reign of the Emperor Nero in the mid to late 60s. So he's writing Romans in either the year 57 or 58 during his third missionary journey, and we can piece that together just from some different things in the letter. He talks about the fact that he's never been to Rome at this point, so that puts it before his imprisonment and voyage at the end of Acts. He talks about his desire to come to Rome, and interestingly enough, he expresses a desire to ultimately go as far as Spain to share the gospel. There's different scholars are divided about whether he ultimately got there. It does seem that after being imprisoned in Rome at the end of Acts that he was most likely released for a time and went on another journey and then was later arrested again and killed at that point. But we're not 100% sure. The scriptural narrative doesn't give us a whole lot about that. Audience, and this is where I want to really spend most of the time here. Yes, Hudson, that's right. So the church in Rome was at this time mostly Gentiles, but not all the way. And something very interesting had happened, and we read a little bit of a reference to this in the book of Acts. But the Emperor Claudius, who came before Nero, had actually kicked all of the Jews out of Rome, likely because there were disturbances between the Jewish people and Christians, and to Claudius, he wasn't really able to tell the difference at this point. He figured that Christianity was just a little offshoot or sect within Judaism. And so that had an effect on the church in Rome. Early churches in most places were predominantly Jewish, which makes sense. They're the people that got the Old Testament. They're the people who were expecting the Messiah, that had the history of God's redemptive activity. And so generally, Jews were the earliest Christians. But as time went on, that started to change, and we saw that in Acts. Now in Rome, what's going on is the church that's predominantly Jewish, all of a sudden, all the Jews are kicked out of Rome. What does that do to the church? Leaves it basically just Gentile. So you can imagine how things would change. All of a sudden, the emphasis on some of the Old Testament ceremonies and traditions that the Jewish people practiced, the Gentiles weren't as interested in that. Later, the edict was reversed and the Jews were allowed back. And so then, all of a sudden, all the Jewish Christians came home to Rome, and the church, we can speculate, but I think we're on pretty firm ground here, didn't look the same way it did when they left. And you can imagine there's all sorts of opportunity for tension and for squabbling. And so that provides a big part of the backdrop of Romans. Explains why Paul focuses on the relationship between the Jews and the Gentiles so much in the book. And Paul is most likely writing this in the vicinity of Corinth, based on, again, the clues we have from the letter itself. So purposes for writing the letter. There's three in general, right? First one is he wants to give an overview of the gospel, or if we wanted to be fancy, we could say a framework of apostolic teaching, which again is just a fancy-dancy way of saying, this is what I teach. This is what the gospel is. This is the plan of God. And Romans is famous for having one of the most thorough just explanations of what the gospel is that goes on for chapter after chapter. Also, we just talked about how the church was dealing with some unique Jew-Gentile issues. Paul addresses a lot of these things and brings the gospel to bear on them. That, I think, has a lot to say to churches throughout history, right? Because in creating a people that spans every tribe, nation, and tongue, right, Jesus has created a body of a lot of different people that are diverse in a lot of different ways. And as fallen human beings, it's really hard for us to do that well, regardless of whether we find ourselves in the majority or the minority or somewhere in between in our own particular context. So a lot of good stuff in the book of Romans. And Paul's also kind of introducing himself. He'd never been to Rome. He hoped to come to Rome and use it as a base to go ultimately to Spain. And so he wants to let them know, this is who I am. This is what I teach. Hey, I'm hoping to come and see y'all. His grand theme really is summed up in his thesis statement, which is in chapter 1, verses 16 and 17, famous verses. I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God to salvation for all who believe, first to the Jew, then to the Gentile. For in this gospel the righteousness of God is revealed, righteousness that is by faith from first to last. So that's a brief intro to the book of Romans. We'll be going much more in depth on that later this week. But there you go. And now we'll turn our attention back to 2 Corinthians. Have a great day.